Most people believe that value is subjective, that what matters to one person means nothing to another. That worth is determined by opinion, by circumstance, by luck. They're wrong. Value isn't random. It isn't arbitrary. It follows laws as predictable as gravity, as inevitable as entropy. And the moment you understand these laws, the moment you internalize how value is actually created, perceived, your bank account changes. Your options change, your identity changes. But most people never reach that moment. They spend their entire lives reacting to financial pressure instead of operating from a position of strength. They make decisions from a place of scarcity, anxiety, and survival mode. And that right there is the invisible cage that keeps them trapped. This video isn't about getting rich. It's not about some get-rich-quick scheme or investment strategy that promises millions. This is about something more fundamental, more immediate, and frankly, more powerful than any of that. This is about the precise moment when your relationship with money fundamentally transforms, when you stop being controlled by it and start controlling it, when you stop living paycheck to paycheck, decision to decision, crisis to crisis. And that moment, that specific threshold, happens at $10,000. Not 100,000, not a million, 10,000. And by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why that number changes everything. Let me paint you a picture of the world most people inhabit without even realizing it. It's 3 in the morning. You're awake. You've been awake for an hour. Your mind is running calculations. The car made a noise today. A strange grinding sound when you turned left. You know that sound. You've heard it before. It's expensive. And your checking account has $800 in it. Rent is due in 12 days. The credit card is already at 70% of its limit. Your stomach tightens. Your heart rate increases. You're not having a heart attack. You're having a normal Tuesday night in the life of someone living without a financial buffer. This is the anxiety of scarcity. And it's not just stressful, it's biological. Your body is producing cortisol, the stress hormone, at elevated levels. Your amygdala, the fear center of your brain, is in a constant state of alert. You're not thinking clearly. You can't. Your cognitive bandwidth, the mental resources available for problem-solving, creativity, this isn't a character flaw, this is physiology. The overwhelming majority of Americans live in this state. Studies show that over 60% of the population couldn't cover a $1,000 emergency without. Think about that. A single unexpected expense, a car repair, a medical bill, a broken appliance, high-interest debt, delayed maintenance that creates bigger problems, desperate job choices because they can't afford to be unemployed for even a week. The anxiety of scarcity doesn't just drain your bank account, it drains your future. Every decision you make from that place is a survival decision, not a strategic one. And survival decisions compound in the wrong direction. Now let me tell you about the number. $10,000, not $9,000, not $15,000, $10,000. There's something almost mathematical about this threshold, something that transcends culture, income level. When researchers study financial stress and well-being, they consistently find a breaking point around this. It's not arbitrary. $10,000 covers approximately 95% of common emergencies. A major car repair, a medical deductible, 2 months of rent if you lose your job, a last-minute flight for a family emergency. It's not enough to retire on, it's not enough to buy a house, but it's enough to stop the bleeding. It's enough to shift your nervous system from panic to peace. And that shift, that neurological transformation, is worth more than any investment return you'll ever see. Because here's what happens the moment you hit that number. Your cortisol levels drop. This isn't metaphorical, this is measurable. Studies on financial security show that people with an emergency fund have significantly lower baseline stress. They sleep better, their blood pressure stabilizes, their immune systems function more effectively. But the change goes deeper than biology. It's psychological, that grinding sound your car makes. It's still annoying, it's still a problem. But it's no longer an existential crisis. It's a $500 inconvenience, not a life-altering catastrophe. Your friend invites you to a wedding across the country. You don't have to calculate whether you can afford the plane ticket. You just decide if you want to go. That's freedom, not the freedom to buy whatever you want. The freedom to stop thinking about money every single minute of every single day. The benefit of the emergency fund isn't spending it. The benefit is knowing it's there. It's the psychological equivalent of having a fire extinguisher in your kitchen. You hope you never use it. But the moment you need it, it saves everything. And more importantly, Just having it changes how you move through the world. You walk into job interviews differently when you have $10,000 in the bank. You negotiate salary differently. You're not desperate. You're not coming from scarcity. You can say no to bad offers. You can wait for the right opportunity instead of jumping at the first one. Employers can sense this. They can't articulate it, but they feel it. Confidence isn't faked, it's earned. And financial security breeds genuine confidence. But there's something even more profound happening beneath the surface. You're not just building an emergency fund, you're building a new identity. Human beings are narrative creatures. We tell ourselves stories about who we are, and then we live into those stories. Most people have a story that goes like this. I'm just not good with money, I'm a spender, I live for today. I'll never get ahead. These aren't observations, they're identities, and identities are incredibly sticky. They resist change because changing your identity means admitting that the old story was wrong, that you've been living a lie. That's uncomfortable. Most people avoid that discomfort forever. But saving your first $10,000 forces a narrative shift. You can't tell yourself you're bad with money when you have 5 figures in your account. The evidence contradicts the story, so the story has to change. And when your story changes, your behavior changes. You're no longer someone who tries to save money. You're someone who is a saver. That's not semantics, that's transformation. The mathematics of immunity are elegant. Most financial advisors will tell you to save 3 to 6 months of expenses. That's sound advice for long-term stability, but it's psychologically demotivating for someone starting from zero. 6 months of expenses, if you're spending $3,000 a month, is $18,000. That feels impossible. It feels like a distant dream. But $10,000 is achievable. It's ambitious but realistic. And more importantly, it provides actual protection. The average emergency room visit costs around $1,500. The average car transmission replacement is $2,500. A water heater, $1,000. Your phone screen, $200. Orthodontist emergency for your kid, $800. Add them all up over the course of a year, and $10,000 covers the vast majority of real-world crises. It's not perfect insurance, but it's functional immunity from the kind of disasters that derail most people's lives. And when you're immune to small disasters, something remarkable happens. You stop making decisions from fear. Fear is expensive. Fear makes you take the wrong job because you need something right now. Fear makes you stay in toxic relationships because you can't afford to leave. Fear makes you skip preventive healthcare because you can't afford the copay today. Fear keeps you trapped in cycles that guarantee failure. But the moment you have a buffer, fear loses its power. You can think clearly, you can plan strategically, you can take calculated risks because the downside is no longer catastrophic. This is how people escape the cycle. Not through luck, not through windfalls, through the simple, unsexy act of building a cushion that lets them stop playing defense and start playing A. Let's talk about decision fatigue. Most people don't realize how much mental energy they waste on trivial financial decisions. Brand name or generic, coffee at home or drive-through, this shirt or that one. Each decision requires cognitive resources. And when you're operating from scarcity, when every dollar matters because you're living on the edge, should I, can I, what if? By the end of the day, you're mentally exhausted, not from hard work. And that exhaustion makes you worse at everything else. Your job performance suffers. Your relationships suffer. Your health suffers. Now imagine having $10,000 in reserve. Suddenly the $5 decision doesn't matter. You're not wasting mental energy calculating whether you can afford the good coffee beans. You just buy them and move on. That freed up bandwidth, you can now use it for things that actually matter. Career development, learning new skills, building relationships, solving real problems. This is why financial security makes people more productive, more creative, and more successful. Not because they have more money, because they have more mental space. The moment you can invest in yourself, everything accelerates. Most people can't afford to take risks on their own development. They can't afford to take a certification course that costs $800. They can't afford to attend a conference that might lead to career opportunities. They can't afford to take a temporary pay cut to switch into a better industry. They're trapped by immediate needs. But when you have a buffer, you can make investments that have asymmetric returns. A $600 online course might double your income. A $1,000 investment in professional wardrobe might change how clients perceive you. $500 to fix your LinkedIn and resume might open doors you didn't know existed. These aren't luxuries. These are leverage. And leverage is how you escape the linear income trap. You can't trade hours for dollars forever. Eventually, you run out of hours. But skills, credentials, networks, reputation, those compound. They multiply. And the only way to build them is to invest in yourself before the return is guaranteed. That requires security. That requires the $10,000 threshold. Your relationships improve. This isn't talked about enough, but financial stress is one of the leading causes of relationship breakdown. Couples fight about money more than almost anything else, not because they're greedy, not because they're materialistic, but because money represents safety, and when safety is threatened, people panic. They blame, they withdraw. They make decisions from fear that damage trust. But when both partners know there's a buffer, when unexpected expenses don't trigger blame and recrimination, you're partners solving problems together, not adversaries fighting over scraps. Your sleep improves. Your physical health improves. You're less irritable. You have more patience with your kids. You show up better in every domain of your life. And all of it traces back to one simple fact. You're not operating from survival mode anymore. So how do you actually build it? This is where most advice fails. People will tell you to cut out lattes, stop eating avocado toast, cancel your subscriptions. And sure, those things might save you a few $100s a year, but they're not going to get you to 10,000. Not quickly. Not in a way that feels sustainable. The truth is, you need to focus on two things simultaneously: small, consistent savings and increased income. Let's start with savings. The goal isn't to make massive, dramatic cuts that you can't sustain. The goal is to create a habit. Start with 1% of your income. If you make $3,000 a month, that's $30. Automate it. Set up an automatic transfer the day after your paycheck hits. You won't miss it. And more importantly, you're training your brain to identify as someone who saves. After a month, increase it to 2%, then 3%, then 5%. Within 6 months, you're saving 10 to 15% without feeling deprived. Why? Because you adapted. Your lifestyle adjusted. Your brain recalibrated what normal feels like. But here's the truth most people don't want to hear. Saving alone won't get you there fast enough. You need to earn more. And before you roll your eyes and say that's obvious, let me tell you something that isn't obvious. You have more earning potential right now, today. With the skills and resources you already have, most people are sitting on income opportunities they don't see because they're trained to think of income as. But that's not how wealth is built. Wealth is built through multiple streams, and in the modern economy, creating a second stream is easier than ever. Let me give you 4 specific opportunities that are available right now that require minimal startup capital. First, mobile car detailing. People love their cars. They'll pay good money to have them cleaned properly. And here's the key. You go to them. You don't need a physical location. You need a few $100s in supplies, a water source. You can learn everything you need from YouTube in a weekend. Charge between $100 and $250 per vehicle. Do 2 cars on Saturday, 2 on Sunday. That's $400 to $1,000 per weekend. Do it consistently for 6 months while saving aggressively, and you're halfway to your 10,000. Second, pet sitting and dog walking. If you live in a suburban or urban area, there are people traveling constantly who need someone trustworthy to. This isn't glamorous work, but it's reliable. It pays $20 to $50 per visit, and the barrier to entry is almost zero. Put up flyers at local pet stores. Post in neighborhood Facebook groups. Get 3 or 4 regular clients, and you're generating an extra $300 to $500 per month. Do this in addition to your regular job. The hours are flexible. Early morning dog walks before work. Evening pet check-ins. Weekend sitting while people are out of town. Stack this income. Every dollar goes straight to the fund. Third, reselling. This is arbitrage in its purest form. You buy low, sell higher. Garage sales, estate sales, and thrift stores are gold mines if you know what to look for. Electronics, designer brands, vintage items, collectibles. You don't need to be an expert. You need a smartphone to check eBay sold listings and the discipline to show up every Saturday morning. Buy a $20 item, sell it for $60 on Facebook Marketplace. Do that 5 times a weekend and you're netting $200. Do it every weekend for a month and that's $800, pure profit. Most people won't do this because it feels beneath them. Their ego won't allow it. That ego is keeping them poor. Fourth, gig economy platforms, DoorDash, Uber, Instacart, TaskRabbit. These aren't careers, they're tools. And when used strategically, they're incredibly effective. Work 10 extra hours a week outside your regular job. At $20 to $30 per hour, that's $200 to $300 per week, $1,000 to $1,200 per month. Combine that with aggressive saving from your primary income, maybe 12 if you're disciplined. The point isn't to do all of these forever. The point is to sprint, to compress time, to sacrifice 18 months of comfort for decades of security. Most people won't do it. They'll say they don't have time. They'll say it's too hard. They'll justify their inaction with excuses that sound reasonable. And they'll still be broke 5 years from now, wondering why nothing ever changes. Now, before we go deeper, I need you to do something. I need you to make a decision right now, not later, not after you finish the video, right now. If what you've heard so far resonates, if some part of you recognizes that you've been operating from scarcity, here it is. I am committed to building financial security, that's it. Not I will try, not I hope. I am committed. And here's why this matters. Public declarations change behavior. When you state something publicly, when you attach your name and identity to a commitment, it becomes real, it becomes accountable. Social psychologists have known this for decades. People who publicly commit to goals are significantly more likely to follow through. Not because someone is watching, because they told themselves, in a way that feels permanent, that this is who they are now, so comment. Do it before you forget, before the moment passes, and while you're there, hit the like button. Not because I need the validation, because you need the pattern. Every small act of discipline, every tiny commitment, reinforces the identity you're building. The identity of someone who follows through. Someone who doesn't just consume content and move on. Someone who takes action. And if you haven't subscribed yet, do it now. This channel exists for one reason, to give you knowledge that most people will never access because if you're still watching, you're not most people. You're someone who understands that the edge comes from information, from strategy. Subscribe, turn on notifications, and commit to showing up. Because what comes next is going to challenge everything you think you know about value, about money. We've covered the foundation. The anxiety of scarcity, the magic of $10,000, the biological and psychological transformation that happens when you cross that threshold. The practical strategies for building it faster than you thought possible. You understand now that this isn't about deprivation. It's about liberation. It's about reclaiming cognitive bandwidth, reducing cortisol, and shifting from defense to offense. But that's just the surface. That's the part of the conversation that's safe, that everyone can accept. What comes next doesn't fit into conventional wisdom. What comes next is reserved for the people who are ready to see how the game actually works. Not the game people talk about in public, the real game. The one played by people who understand leverage, timing, and asymmetric returns. Everything up to this point has been about security, about building a foundation, about stopping the bleeding. But security alone doesn't create wealth. Security creates options, and options are only valuable if you know how to use them. Most people hit the $10,000 mark and then coast. They feel relief, they exhale, and that relief, while justified, becomes a trap, because relief breeds complacency. And complacency is the death of growth. So let's talk about what happens after 10,000. Let's talk about the mindset that separates people who build lasting wealth from people who simply stop being. The concept of fixed versus growth mindset is everywhere now. Carol Dweck's research has been popularized to the point of cliché. But most people misunderstand it. They think it's about positivity, about believing in yourself, about affirmations and vision boards. It's not. It's about something much more fundamental. It's about how you interpret reality. People with a fixed mindset believe that ability is static. You're either smart or you're not, talented or you're not, good with money or you're not. And if you fail at something, that failure is evidence of your inherent limitation. So you avoid challenges. You stick to what you know. You never risk looking stupid or incompetent. People with a growth mindset believe that ability is developed. That intelligence, skill, and competence are built through effort, strategy, and time. Failure isn't a verdict, it's data. It tells you what didn't work so you can adjust and try again. This isn't optimism, this is realism. Because the evidence is overwhelming, people improve at things, measurably, consistently, across every domain. The question isn't whether growth is possible. The question is whether you're willing to endure the discomfort of being temporarily bad at something. Here's the linguistic shift that changes everything. Add one word to your limitations. The word is yet. I don't know how to code. I don't know how to code yet. I'm not good at sales. I'm not good at sales yet. I can't afford that. I can't afford that yet. This isn't a trick. This is reframing. It shifts your brain from viewing the present state as permanent to viewing it as temporary and changeable. And once you see your limitations as temporary, you stop defending them. You stop building your identity around what you can't do. You start building it around what you're learning to do. That shift, that single word, creates a trajectory toward competence that most people never access because failure is expensive when you interpret it as final, but it's cheap when you interpret it as tuition. Every mistake you make is either wasted pain or purchased knowledge. The difference is what you do with it. Most people experience failure and immediately try to forget it. They bury it, they rationalize it. They blame external factors. And in doing so, they throw away the most valuable thing failure offers: information. Successful people do the opposite. They dissect failure, they study it. They ask what specifically went wrong, what they could have done differently. This isn't masochism, this is efficiency. Because if you don't learn from failure, you'll repeat it. And repeated failure without learning is just expensive stupidity. Real growth only happens in discomfort. This is non-negotiable. If you're comfortable, you're not growing, you're maintaining. And maintenance is fine if you've already achieved everything you want. But if you haven't, if there's still a gap between where you are and where you want to be, your nervous system is designed to avoid discomfort. That's not a bug, that's a feature. It kept your ancestors alive. But in the modern world, the things that feel uncomfortable are usually the things that lead to growth. Public speaking, cold calling, learning a new skill, having difficult conversations. Your brain interprets these as threats, but they're not. They're opportunities disguised as fear. And the more you lean into that discomfort, the more you expand your capacity. You literally rewire your neural pathways. What felt impossible 6 months ago feels routine today. Not because it got easier, because you got stronger. Criticism is either poison or fuel, depending on how you process it. If you have a fixed mindset, criticism feels like an attack on your identity. Someone says your work is subpar and you hear I am subpar. Someone points out a mistake and you feel shame. So you defend yourself, you rationalize, you attack back, and in doing so you miss the entire point. Because even harsh criticism, even poorly delivered criticism, your job isn't to agree with all of it. Your job is to extract the kernel of truth and use it. Strip away the tone, ignore the delivery, focus on the content. Is there something here I can learn? Is there a blind spot I didn't see? Is there a pattern I need to address? If yes, take it. If no, discard it. But don't waste energy defending yourself. Defense is for people who are fragile. You're not fragile. You're under construction. Perfectionism is a disease. It masquerades as high standards, but it's actually fear. Fear of judgment, fear of failure, fear of being exposed as less than you pretend to be. And that fear keeps you stuck. Because if you never ship, if you never put your work into the world, perfectionists spend years refining things that don't need to be refined. They obsess over details that don't matter. They wait for the perfect moment, the perfect circumstances, the perfect version of themselves. And while they wait, other people, less talented, less intelligent, less capable people, building the business, creating the content, making the sales, gaining the experience. And eventually those less perfect people surpass the perfectionist because repetition beats refinement. Volume beats polish. Done beats perfect every single time. Your first attempt at anything will be mediocre. That's fine, do it anyway. Your 10th attempt will be better, your 100th will be good, your 1,000th will be excellent, but you never get to 1,000 if you're stuck, trying to make attempt number 1 flawless. Focus on the process, not the outcome. Outcomes are largely outside your control. You can do everything right and still lose. You can execute perfectly and still fail because of timing, luck, or factors you didn't anticipate. But the process is entirely within your control. You control how much effort you put in. You control whether you show up consistently. You control whether you learn from mistakes. And if you focus on optimizing the process, if you celebrate the fact that you did the work, regardless of because outcome-based motivation is fragile. You win, you feel great, you lose, you quit. But process-based motivation is anti-fragile. You did the work, that's a win. You showed up when you didn't feel like it. That's a win. You learned something new, that's a win. You stack those wins and eventually, the outcomes take care of themselves. Not because you manifested them, because you built competence through repetition. The year is ending, a new one is starting. And every January, millions of people make resolutions they'll abandon by February. Why? Because they focus on the outcome instead of the identity. They say, I want to save $10,000. But they don't change who they are. They don't become someone who saves. They just try harder at being someone who doesn't. And willpower always loses to identity. Always. If you see yourself as someone who's bad with money, you'll find a way to sabotage your savings. If you see yourself as someone who can't stick to anything, you'll find a way to quit. But if you change the identity, if you decide that you are now someone who values financial security, you don't have to fight yourself. You're just being who you are, and that change starts today, not January 1st, today. Because waiting for the perfect moment is just another form of procrastination. The perfect moment doesn't exist. There will always be a reason to delay, an expense you didn't anticipate, a holiday coming up, a stressful week at work. Waiting for conditions to be ideal is waiting forever. So make the decision now. Open the savings account now. Set up the automatic transfer now. Take the first step on the side hustle now. Small action taken immediately beats perfect planning executed never. And once you take that first step, the second one is easier. Momentum builds. Identity solidifies. And 6 months from now, you won't recognize the person you used to be. There's a concept from Terry Pratchett that illustrates the entire economic trap most people live in. It's called the boots theory. A poor man buys cheap boots for $10. They last a season. A rich man buys expensive boots for $50. They last 10 years. Over 10 years, the poor man spends $100 replacing cheap boots. The rich man spends $50 once. The poor man pays double for the same function because he couldn't afford quality up front. This isn't a story about boots. This is a story about every financial decision made from scarcity. The cheap car that breaks down constantly. The unhealthy food that leads to medical bills. The lack of preventive care that turns into emergency care. The inability to buy in bulk because you don't have the upfront cash. Poverty is expensive, and the only way to escape it is to build enough capital to break the cycle. $10,000 is that capital. It's the threshold where you can start making decisions that save money long-term instead of costing more. It's where you can buy the good boots. You're still here, that means something. Most people clicked away in the first 2 minutes. They got uncomfortable, they got bored. They decided this wasn't for them. But you stayed. You absorbed, you considered. And that tells me you're different. You're someone who's willing to look at hard truths. Someone who's willing to do uncomfortable work. Someone who understands that transformation isn't about motivation. It's about information and action. So I'm going to ask you one more time. Go to the comments right now and type, I am building my 10,000. Don't think about it. Don't debate it. Just do it. Make the public commitment, reinforce the identity, and then take one immediate action today. Open a high-yield savings account. Set up an automatic transfer. Research one of the side hustles I mentioned. Apply for one gig economy app. Something. Anything. Because knowledge without action is just entertainment. And you didn't watch this to be entertained. You watched this to change, so prove it. Not to me, to yourself. The life you want is on the other side of the decisions you're avoiding. Stop avoiding them. Start building. And I'll see you in the next one.